China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
同志们，我们在轰轰烈烈的站起来，站起来。Welcome one and all. This is China Watch Radio for the last day of June in the year 2022. Before we kick it off, a quick note. These are very tough times in the Middle Kingdom. Our friends in South China are suffering through some biblical flooding, and if there is such a thing in China. And those in the North China are suffering through hellish heat. So please hold those Chinese who are in danger in your thoughts and prayers. Tough times in the Middle Kingdom. Welcome. This is China Watch Radio. We have Bill Graff. We have Jonty Collier. Are you up there in the woods there, Jonty?
I certainly am. It's great to be here with you all.
David Welch with us. There you go, David.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Billy Graff, of course.
He's not in the weeds.
He is in the weeds.
Well, yeah, maybe he is in the weeds,
in the weeds,
actually.
There you go.
Trees are tall weeds, maybe.
Yeah. So this is our team today. We have Susan Simon on the boards, who is not on the boards at the moment, but we'll be okay. We'll fly anyway. So we're going to start off the show with a number of our correspondence news items from the week, what we think is significant. We're going to follow up those stories with a look at the not-so-open seas of the Taiwan Straits with Epoch Times senior writer Nan Su. And he has an incredibly elucidating article on our relationship between China and Taiwan that is most informative. And then we're going to open up the lines and hear what you have to think about our relationship between the United States and China. So I have the honor of kicking this off. I am Michael Olson, and today I'm going to talk about the secret meetings that BlackRock has been having with the folks in the White House. Now, quick thumbnail update. Last week we talked about how the Biden administration has selected BlackRock Vice President Tom Donilon to oversee our relationships with China. So we've had our eye open on this Tom Donilon. Who is he, and what does it portend for us? Tom Donilon has also worked with Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential campaign, and reportedly was on Biden's shortlist to become the next CIA director. So he is in with the in crowd. In BlackRock, what is BlackRock? Well, of course, it's an investment firm with $10 trillion to invest in what it sees fit to invest in. And it uses that money to buy substantial stakes in many public companies. So if you have IBM, for example, probably BlackRock is a heavy investor in that company, and as it is in many companies, and therefore has a lot of sway in business and in government. He is also, what we know about him, he's a very woke industrialist. In 2020, his CEO letter said that climate change was becoming a defining factor in BlackRock's assessment of companies. So, if you have a company and you're driving electric cars, maybe BlackRock will invest in you. But if you're driving diesel, forget about it. Let's see. Last year, BlackRock became the first foreign-owned investment firm to offer mutual funds and investment products to Chinese investors. And in addition, the research arm of BlackRock has encouraged its investors to triple their exposure to Chinese assets. So this is a very friendly to China company. And in profiling Larry Fink, Consumers Research, which is a conservative nonprofit organization, said he calls democracy messy. He props up the Chinese Communist Party. He praises Xi Jinping and his regime. And he invests in the Chinese military companies. So that is who BlackRock is, and that is who Tom Donilon is. Now we learn from the Heartland Institute that through the year of 2021, Donilon, whose job is, remember this, his job is to find BlackRock's client investors ways to make money with their money. And so we learned throughout 2021 that he was having closed-door meetings with the staff from the Office of Cabinet Affairs and the National Security Council in the White House. So he got to go to the White House, have closed-door meetings with all the mucky-mucks there. And what do you suppose they were talking about in those closed-door meetings? This appears to show that Donilon, an expert in foreign policy, is secretly meeting with well-connected national security staff in the White House while also working for BlackRock. So, what's going on there? So, this puts some questions of ethics on the table. One, what did Thomas Donilon learn during his secret closed-door meetings with administration officials? Did Donilon use the information gained from those meetings with the administration to benefit BlackRock clients? Did BlackRock feed information from Donilon's White House meetings to Xi Jinping and the CCP?
Whoa.
Is BlackRock influencing U.S.-China policy through Thomas Donilon? That is my story. David, you're up.
There's a whole show just on the questions that you asked, Michael. Those are actually brilliant and insightful. Well, many are aware that we had the G7 meeting recently in Germany, and President Biden, of course, the United States is part of the G7. For folks who aren't aware, the G7 is short for a group of seven, and it's the top democracy economies that are backed by democratic governments. And what's kind of fascinating about the G7, sometimes it's the G8 or it's the G7 plus one if they invite or not invite Russia, depending on how things are behaving on the world stage. But in the G7, one of the things they talk about is going forward, how are these countries going to partner together, both for geopolitical purposes, trade, economic, right, a whole range of interest topics and categories. And it's not actually a formally sanctioned body. They just get together informally and have conversations when they align on strategy and approach. For issues
are you
of
saying
common
it's a
interest.
club?
No, not quite a club, but yeah, maybe a club might be. Some people might refer to it as that. What's kind of interesting, though, is that the G7 at this particular meeting had developed an alternative to China, or response to China's Belt and Road Initiative. And I find this really fascinating, particularly given the economic might of the G7 relative to China. So China doesn't really have a global alliances built around the Belt and Road. They've roped in countries and they've captured them as part of...
Captured with a debt.
Yes, but having somebody in a headlock is different than when you have a partnership. And, the G7 has established, these lateral partnerships across, the top 7 economies. And those relationships build durability and sustainability in an initiative, and there's a power in that. I mean, if you think about it, the G7's total economic power is $600 billion. In terms of if you add up the power of might of all the economies together, and
that's got to be bigger than that, doesn't it? 600.
I'm sorry. They pledged $600 billion.
Oh, okay.
To respond to Belt and Road, which is really pretty powerful. If you think about having a set of these top 7 countries working unilaterally, but kind of aligning on a playbook to support.
It's like a co-op.
It's like a co-op, and I thought Biden's quote on this at the end of how he summarized it, I thought was really great. in terms of summarizing for the audience what the outcome was. President Biden said, "This isn't aid or charity. It's an investment that will deliver returns for everyone." And I thought, here's an interesting idea, right? We think of Belt and Road as, putting a country in a headlock like we talked about and, getting some kind of task control over it because of economic dominance, building some kind of superiority. The G7 is actually interested in building interlocking economic relationships so we have win-win. So
building the world's economy up. So
right.
that everybody, rising boats.
Rising
tide brings up all
ships.
Both ships, that's exactly, I think, right on point. Yeah. Just kind of in closing, it'll be interesting to look forward and see what the specifics of how this actually manifests itself in the next year.
Oh, boy, will it ever.
And I imagine we're going to be doing some reporting on this program of, how this unfolds or rolls out. But the fact that they're going to commit, $600 billion across the 7 countries for, investment. And that, brings in not only the power of government, but it brings in all of the non-governmental agencies, banks and so on, within, and businesses within that umbrella of power, economic power, unleashed.
This would make an excellent comparison to the BRICS community of nations that got together, at which
That's right.
Xi Jinping made a big speech to as
That's
well.
Right.
So that would be perhaps in the second hour, maybe we can do a quick comparison of those two things.
Yeah. Actually, that was the article I was about to cover when David's done.
Well, David's done?
On to you, Jonty.
Right.
Jaunty in the weeds.
So as the G7 are conducting their meeting, the BRICS nations are getting together now, or just did. Now BRICS, for those who don't know, represents Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Well, those are all very significant populations.
How do you get in there,
economies.
Jaunty? How did your country get into that group of hoodlums?
Yeah, South Africa's been a part of BRICS for an age. South Africa's, since Mandela took over as president, had a bit of an independent flair, and has wanted to not be bullied around by the G7 nations, essentially. So it doesn't surprise me at all to see South Africa on there. The other thing that the BRICS countries have in common is that they are all exporters of commodities. Brazil's got oil, Russia's got oil, natural gas, wheat. India has got, what does India have? I don't actually, honestly,
people. Lots of people.
China and India have
no,
people.
But it should be a commodity. I need to figure out what India's got. China's got rare earths and steel.
I know what India has. Incense.
Well, they do have spices, and
it could be incense. But let me explain what I'm about to tell you here. And then South Africa, of course, gold, diamonds, various other mineral wealth. And what really Putin described at the BRICS meeting was that they're going to get together and they're going to create a reserve currency that's specifically targeted at trade between the BRICS countries, and really trade with the 6 billion people who aren't part of the G7 or allied with them. And the way that currency is going to work is they're going to use a basket of commodities. Yeah. So you get your various different commodities that everyone needs in order for the economies of the world to function, and that gives you an idea of their value. You sort of weld them all together to help create some stability, and then you use it to back a currency the way that the dollar used to be backed by gold.
Is this kind of like the concept of parity?
Purchasing power parity? I suppose there's an aspect of that. That's sort of the idea of having a basket of right. different commodities that all of these countries are exporters of. So yes, I suppose so. It stands to be a very strong currency because it's actually backed by something, whereas
sure.
our current dollar system is backed by debt and aircraft carriers.
Yeah, and don't forget digital coins.
Something worth noting here is that BRICS is also looking to expand and include a variety of other countries Let me just read you a list of some of the other countries that may very soon be part of this BRICS alliance. Saudi Arabia, Argentina, Kazakhstan, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, not a small country, Nigeria, massively growing population, oil exporter, Senegal, and Thailand. Also, Iran could very well join the BRICS in the near future. So this is
Sounds like the evil empire.
Yeah, I was going to say, this sounds like, at a school dance, all the people standing along the wall who can't get a date.
I wouldn't say that about most of those countries.
Yeah.
Senegal, Nigeria,
Saudi
Argentina.
Arabia.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff coming out of those countries, yeah.
And a
I
lot
can
of
see
resources,
them,
too.
I can see
Yeah, a
them
lot of
as commodity exporters, yeah.
A lot of resources.
But the fragility in something like that, though, is being, having the heavy thumb on the scale of probably Russia and China, especially with their new alliance together. Are people going to feel comfortable?
Yeah, and I saw a figure about those who are most heavily invested, and I think China was way up there on top.
For sure.
Yeah. So I think, have you got it there, Jonty?
If you guys are comfortable, I am. I'm really interested in Billy's report.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so we've been talking about resources, and we've been talking about money, and we've been talking about relationships, and you got to back all that up with firepower, okay? So we've been talking in previous programs about Chinese firepower and their Navy. And the one thing that gets all the attention is the aircraft carrier. They have a brand new aircraft carrier called the Fijian.
003.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive when you look at it. It's got all the bells and whistles. It has the magnetic catapults, the launch and retrieve system.
All designed in the USA.
Yeah.
Coincidence, huh?
It's got, advanced capabilities for carrying things like drones in just a very large scale. It's a pretty fast aircraft carrier as they go. But Jonty, in a previous program, pointed out the fact that modern warfare may not actually really be based on a fantastic aircraft carrier or an aircraft carrier group like we have several groups of in the American Navy. So it's interesting to see what exactly we're talking about because initially experts said that the Fijian might be China's biggest ship. It might be probably not the best way to do it. When you compare it with what modern warfare is going to look like. So let's go to the alternatives that now belong to the Chinese Navy. How about the 55 destroyer, the Type 055 destroyer? This thing was launched in 2017. It's 13,000 tons of guided missile destroyer technology. Mm-hmm. This thing.
That's how they make destroyers these days.
This thing is apparently, to quote the kids, badass. Mm-hmm. It's big enough to be considered a cruiser by NATO standards, but it's equipped with 112 vertical launch tubes. Let me say that again. 112 vertical launch tubes on a single boat, as the Navy refers to them. This is a ship, folks. Anyway, it's a very sophisticated design. It's got stealth features, advanced radar, and a huge missile inventory.
Designed and built in the United States.
The Rand Corporation, remember the Rand Corporation? Well, their senior analyst, Tim Heath, told CNN in 2018, when Beijing launched 2 of the warships in a single day, a testament to China's impressive shipbuilding capabilities. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the other thing that I worry about. This is the one I really worry about. This is the Type 039 submarine. Now, as you know, as anybody who follows our Navy, we have some really great submarines. They're really terrific boats. They're something else.
Yeah.
Apparently, the Juan-class submarine is almost completely silent. It's powered by diesel-electric technology, not nuclear power.
So it doesn't have the range or sustainability at
Doesn't
sea.
have the range or capability, but it's, once again, very quiet.
Well, that's been
You
the
would
hallmark.
have to be pretty good to make diesel anything quiet.
Well, remember now, they
Probably
only
running
run
electric.
run the diesel to charge
Sure.
the battery.
On the surface, yeah.
Once it goes down, it's all electric.
Yeah, and that's been the hallmark of U.S. Navy submarines forever, has been the design of the screw in the back.
That's right.
know,
In
to
fact,
keep it quiet.
we now have something called the Caterpillar drive.
Yeah,
And it's
I remember when Toshiba
yeah.
sold the Russians
The machinery, so
The
they
machinery,
could make quiet
yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
so anyway, they have equipped these diesel electric submarines with advanced battery technology. They've retrofitted some of their older submarines and set them up so that they're extremely quiet for an extremely long period of time.
Wow. Fantastic.
Okay.
Wow.
So anyway, and the final thing I want to talk about in the Chinese Navy, in air quotes, are you ready? The merchant ferries.
Yeah, they're like drones of merchant ships or sampans.
Merchant ferries move a lot of stuff around very stealth. You can load a merchant ferry with just about anything you want to move from point A to point B and not have it be seen.
Yeah, sampans. Kind
Well,
of.
these are
Only-
actually
yeah, modern
these are ferry.
sampans.
Some of these are big enough ferries to haul semis,
Yeah.
but they don't look like military ships, which makes them
So it's
a
another
Chinese advantage.
it's almost it's another form of stealth, right?
Yeah, it's just
hide in
stealth.
plain
Exactly.
sight.
It's
In plain sight.
Yeah.
So anyway,
What I
I
found
wanted. Go ahead, Jonty.
I was going to say what I found interesting there was they're talking about more than 1 million tons.
That's right.
Of displacement of merchant ferries, which are potentially.
Well, you can
dual
haul a
use.
lot of stuff.
And so look, the U.S. Navy displaces about 4.6 million tons. The Chinese Navy displaces about 2 million tons. But if you tack on another 1 million plus tons for these merchant ferries,
Right.
that catches the Chinese Navy up considerably. Maybe not in capabilities so much, but if you're looking at how the heck would China pose a threat to Taiwan?
There you go.
A 1 million ton displacement of ferrying capacity is a critical part of that puzzle.
Let me just add a quick note, and then we'll go to our commercial break. You know, I have lived in the South Pacific. Michael Olson's worked and been in the South Pacific.
I was a sailor.
I've worked in South Pacific.
Here's the thing. When these merchant vessels come into a port,
Yeah.
they're, by comparison, in small countries, they're massive.
Yeah.
They are massive ships.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, this has been the first half hour, but we have a very exciting guest coming up. Nan Su, one of the original correspondents here on
fantastic.
China Watch Radio. So we're really looking forward to hearing from Nan Su, and he's got a brand new article out from Epoch Times that you're going to love listening to. Right back. Stay tuned.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Senior Embedded DSP Engineer, Computer Vision at Magic Leap Incorporated. Position located in Sunnyvale, California. Develops state-of-the-art performance critical perception systems. Must have a bachelor's degree or foreign equivalent in computer engineering, computer science, or related, plus 5 years experience in position offered. Software engineer, design engineer, or related. Alternatively, employer will accept master's degree or foreign equivalent in computer engineering, computer science, or related, plus 1 year experience in position offered. Software engineer, design engineer, or related. Must have 1 year experience with computer vision, machine learning, embedded digital signal processor architecture, deep learning frameworks such as PyTorch or TensorFlow. Low-level performance optimization on embedded platforms, programming skills in C or C++ or Python. Large-scale software build systems on Linux. Send resume to Magic Leap Incorporated. Attention C. Owley, job ID number SEDSPECV, 7500 West Sunrise Boulevard, Plantation, Florida, 33322. Here's the host of Building Matters, David Parks, with an exciting announcement.
I'm excited to inform you that Granite Rock Company who has headquarters in Watsonville, has signed on to be our show's first sponsor for Building Matters. Granite Rock has been building the foundation of this community for over 120 years, and I'm proud of my association with them for nearly a third of that time. Granite Rock is both a building materials supplier as well as a concrete delivery company with locations in Santa Cruz and Watsonville, Salinas, Seaside, and Redwood City. Granite Rock also has a construction and engineering division that successfully performs roadway improvements throughout our region. With my past experience as construction manager for the County of Santa Clara for nearly 10 years, I can personally attest to the high level of expertise and professionalism that they bring to each and every project. So welcome Granite Rock to Building Matters on KSCO Radio 1080.
If you think things couldn't get any worse, think again. We're all now in completely uncharted territory, all of us, from the entire COVID-19 scenario to covert climate engineering operations in our skies to unfolding ecological collapse around the world. Converging catastrophes are closing in from countless directions. What cards will the controllers play next? Tune into the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m.
And replayed again 6 p.m. Saturday.
on KSCO 1080 AM. This is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.
Welcome back. Hey, give this a listen. The Chinese regime recently claimed sovereign rights on the entire Taiwan Strait, adding that U.S. warships sailing through it were partaking in provocative behavior.
Oh, my.
Beijing's new move might have put the U.S. government in a more difficult position to continue its one China policy. Now, who could possibly tell us what all this means? I think I know.
We have to go back to the beginning.
We have to go back to Nan Su, who is a senior writer for Epoch Times. Nan Su, welcome back to China Watch Radio.
Oh, hi! It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to come back. Hey, Michael, and what was Billy?
Billy and David and Jonty and Susan.
All right. Hello, everyone.
We have quite a crew. So, first of all, I'd like to compliment you on your article in Epoch Times titled, Beijing's Claim to Sovereignty of Taiwan Strait Undermines One China Policy.
Thank you for scaring me. I really appreciate it, Nan.
This article really helped me understand the whole concept of one China policy. It made it very clear, and it really set the stage for where we're at right now with China. So perhaps you would be so good as to tell us what that one China policy is, Nan.
Okay. One China policy has two parts. You know, very often people talk about one part, but ignore another part. Now, actually, there are three elements. Number one, we have to keep in mind all the time, the U.S. government has never admitted that Taiwan is part of China.
Mm-hmm. They used a different word, right?
They say we recognize, we acknowledge, the U.S. government acknowledge that China believes Taiwan is a part of China.
Right.
So we didn't say we agree, but we just say we acknowledge that China believes Taiwan is a part of China. So basically, that's that. But we never say we agree with it.
Okay. Now, whoever did that was very clever. Whoever established that agreement. Yeah, that was impressive.
Well, yeah, because actually there's three communiques signed between United States and China. One in 1972 under President Nixon. The second one, 1979 under President Carter, and the third one, 1982 under President Reagan. Now, all of these three communiques are the base of U.S.-China diplomatic relationship. Now, during those times, at that time, actually, China has two governments. One is Beijing government, another Taiwan's government. Now, at those times, both Beijing believe Taiwan is a part of China, and Taiwan government believe the entire China belongs to Taiwan government.
Now Don Hsu, may I go through that one more time? Because I found that to be most illuminating. There are two Chinese governments.
That is correct.
Okay. And both Chinese governments believe there is only one China.
That is correct.
And then the People's Republic of China believe that their China consists of Taiwan, and the Taiwan government believes that the People's Republic of China is part of them.
Yes.
That is correct. That is correct. And the United States government did not agree with neither side, but rather just say, well, we acknowledge your standpoint, but we don't agree with either side. But however, then it comes to our China policy. The one China policy basically means the U.S. government will not establish a formal diplomatic relationship with Taiwan. That's it. But it has nothing to do if Taiwan is a part of China or not. It's not our business. We just say we are going to establish a diplomatic relationship with the Beijing government instead of Taiwan government, but we let alone if Taiwan is a part of China. So it's not our business.
But Nansu, you also made mention that there was a condition.
That it's right. That's the number 3 part. The third part that we're going to talk about. Now, most of the people, when they talk about one China policy, they only remember the U.S. government's promise, which is not to establish diplomatic relationship with Taiwan. That's, most people mention all the time, but they forgot what U.S. government asked Beijing for return. Now, that the 3 communique was the 3 agreements signed between U.S. and Beijing. Now, the U.S. government didn't give the promise, not asking for return. We never done that. So we asked something for return. The return was the Beijing government would only use peaceful solutions to solve its issue between China and Taiwan. So that is the bottom line of the one China policy, and also that was also the precondition for United States government to withdraw all the U.S. military from Taiwan.
Wow. So our side of this agreement is that we acknowledge both governments, the People's Republic of China government. We acknowledge the Taiwan government. We acknowledge that there should be one China, and we will stand behind this agreement so long as China only uses peaceful means in its negotiations with Taiwan.
That's correct.
So, which is a very interesting agreement, is it not, Non? Because it seems like what the United States is pushing everybody to do is to peacefully resolve this dispute between themselves.
That it's correct. That is the bottom line. And in all 3 communiques, United States again and again affirm that this position, the 2 sides the two governments on two sides of Taiwan Strait should only use peaceful measures to deal with the issue. So that's the bottom line, which means if China use military to invade Taiwan, then that's the end of U.S.-China diplomatic relationship. And the United States government shall have every right to intervene China's invasion of Taiwan militarily.
So what you're saying is that if the People's Republic of China invades Taiwan, all bets are off.
Now, I have a question to ask Nansu, because I value his opinion very much. Do you think, at the moment, the United States government, in its positioning and stancing and everything else, is provoking the Chinese mainland government to attack Taiwan?
Well, China just claimed sovereignty of entire Taiwan Strait. So therefore, I think it's wise for our leaders to reaffirm that the United States government will intervene militarily if China decides to invade Taiwan. And President Biden, in the last week of May, when he was in Japan, when he entered in a news conference, answer a reporter's question. The reporter asked President Biden, if China invade Taiwan, will U.S. intervene militarily? And Biden answered very clearly, yes. Now, however, in the following day, the White House news briefing, the spokesperson of the White House said that the United States one China policy has not been changed. So now, most of the media believe Biden made an error again, but none of the media actually realize that Biden and the White House spokesperson, they are not contradicting. They are not contradicting to each other.
They're not contradicting each other. They're talking about different sides of the same coin.
Apples and oranges.
That's right. That's right.
So I had another question for you, Nansu David. If the PRC is claiming that they own the Straits of Taiwan, what is the impact for the large islands between that Taiwan owns inside of that strait in terms of their navigability to service those islands? They have a fairly significant military presence on some of these islands.
No, actually, there is no island within Taiwan Strait. Those islands that you talk about was on the southern part.
The southern part, yeah.
On the southern part of Taiwan, those islands were in South China Sea. South China Sea, located in the southern side of Taiwan. Taiwan is between South China Sea and mainland China.
But doesn't that buff up against the edge, though, of the strait? I mean, it seems like the strait flows down to the South China Sea, right, where those islands are.
Yes. Well, on the southern side of, actually, you have to go a little bit to the south in order to reach South China Sea.
Yeah.
And you have South China Sea on the south. And then you a little north, that's Taiwan. And then you go further north, that's mainland China. But Chinese government has been building man-made islands in South China Sea since 2014. And Xi Jinping promised President Obama that, China is never going to use all these man-made islands for military purpose. But now, they fully militarized the 3 islands they built in South China Sea. They have good missiles, military airplane runways, and everything. So, however, all these man-made islands altogether not really going to do much if China doesn't have control of Taiwan.
There you go.
So that's why.
So let's go back to the situation with respect to our strategic ambiguity in the one China policy. And as David was pointing out to you, I think it appears as though U.S. has been sailing through the South or the Taiwan Strait forever. I think I myself have sailed through the Taiwan Strait. And so we've been doing that forever. But now China says the Taiwan Strait is now ours. And the U.S. ships and other ships that are sailing through the Taiwan Strait are acting in a provocative way.
So they say.
Yeah. But they always lie.
Well,
so,
that's got to be a big chunk of bluff and bluster, right? I mean, we take,
So
that's why I asked the question about U.S. provocation.
Yeah.
Now, Non-Su, you say that China's actions are putting in danger our one China policy. So how does that work? How if China invades Taiwan, our one China policy is dead, right?
That's right.
That's it. So
that's as simple as that. If China uses force to control Taiwan Strait or invade Taiwan, that means the U.S.-China diplomatic relationship is dead because it undermines or it breaches the three communiques. The contract was breached, so there shouldn't be any continuation of a diplomatic relationship between China and the United States.
You know, China seems very clever at being able to push the edge of the envelope of what will, right, where we would draw a line, right, in terms of us, being involved.
I think, David, what I don't understand is why the United States government hasn't reiterated the three.
Why have they not made it clear what our relationship
exactly.
is?
Because if everybody understood what Non-Su just explained to us, if that was in the news media,
let's ask Non-Su.
Why hasn't our government firmed up that policy?
Yeah.
Well, it's become more and more clear right now. Especially recently, especially when President Biden answered the question in Japan and say, if China invades Taiwan, the United States will intervene militarily.
Yeah, but if the president said that statement that he said, and then explained why by saying that we got these three other agreements that if you violate it,
but wouldn't they just test it? I mean, the U.S. Navy has I think done an admirable job in the last couple of years of preserving rights of way, right, of international waters. And rather than reacting to some statement that Chinese officials have made, why don't we test the right of way with the Navy, right? I think maybe at some point they're probably formalizing it seems like there should be more of a physical way to test this instead of just through rhetoric. Somewhat, I imagine there would be a response, but maybe they're choosing the time and the place to make the response.
I'm sure they will have to respond.
They have to, right? Yeah. You can't let that go.
One of the problems I see in this whole interaction. Non-Su brought up what Joe Biden said when he was in Japan.
Right.
And then he was countered by his press people.
Yeah.
And what Non was saying, they weren't saying anything different. They were saying the same thing.
They weren't countering it.
They were talking about the same two different sides of the same coin. And I think the problem essentially was the public's perception of Joe Biden.
That's my point.
And you look at Joe Biden and where is he today?
Why didn't he not clarify his position? That's why I asked Non-Su the same thing. Why when the president said, yes, we'll back Taiwan, and then he didn't say, because of these earlier presidents' agreements with China, this is the way it's laid out. Why didn't he explain it?
And then why isn't the press, the mainstream press,
Picking up on it.
picking up on what our agreement is,
Right.
and really looking at it, and seeing it was actually a magnificent agreement on our part. From what Nan-Su describes here, it's designed to force peace,
Yeah, it is.
Correct.
Yeah.
and some magnificent diplomacy.
So, Nan, have you got any reaction from your article yet about your clarification on how this is set up?
Yeah. People, basically, I receive some comments. People say, yes, so if China invaded Taiwan, we need to be there.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, we'll have a few more minutes with you, but I've been watching nature in China, and it's very scary that what's going on in China. In South China, they're living through epic floods. North China, epic heat waves, and a lot of crops are being lost in China as we speak. And China was already short
On food.
of food. How do you see that shaking out, Nan-Su?
Well, the flood and weather problem, China is a large country. They always have that problem. It's just like a tornado. Here in the United States, it comes back every year. Now, one thing I do want to go back to Taiwan.
Okay.
I do want to say that people don't realize why Taiwan is so important.
Very good.
If China controls Taiwan, China controls South China Sea, and the total 1/3 of international trade going through South China Sea, which make South China Sea the lifeline of Japan's economy, because Japan is an island nation. 1/3 of Japan's economy rely on foreign trade. So if China controls the South China Sea, they will control the lifeline of Japan's economy, which means China may be able to force the United States to completely rewrite its Indo-Pacific strategy. If you go to White House webpage, it states there the Indo-Pacific strategy started during Donald Trump was in office. Now, it says Indo-Pacific region stretched from Indian Ocean all the way to the coastal line of the United States. And this Indo-Pacific region covers half of the total world's population and 2/3 of world economy, which make this Indo-Pacific region the world's center of gravity. Now, the United States Indo-Pacific strategy's centerpiece is Japan. So if China controls Taiwan and then controls South China Sea, then it will impose a great threat to the centerpiece of United States Indo-Pacific strategy.
There you go.
It seems like if we're fuzzy at all on this policy that you're describing, Nan-Su, that the China PRC almost wins just because of proximity.
Well, the thing everybody sort of forgets, Japan's a tiny little country, but it's the number 3 economy in the world.
Absolutely.
And it is so by exporting and
That's
importing goods.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and like Nan says, ain't going to be importing or exporting anything if China runs the Pacific.
And that's why I was so, you'll remember a couple of weeks ago on this very program, I was adamant about the Solomon Islands and about the Pacific region and about how China trying to set up an agreement in the Solomon Islands is not a good thing for anybody.
It's World War II in the Pacific all over again.
Yeah, it really
I've
is.
got a quick question I'd like to ask Nan. No, one of the things in this article that I found really fascinating. And I should mention for our audience, you can find Nan's article with the title "Beijing's Claim to Sovereignty of the Taiwan Strait Undermines U.S. One China Policy" on the Epoch Times website. If you're having a hard time finding it, go to ChinaWatchRadio.com and you'll find a link to the article there. Now, you mentioned how there was the use of the term "acknowledge" with regards to the U.S. acknowledging that China, that mainland China had a claim on Taiwan, and that in the English translation, the word "acknowledge" was used in the first of the three communiques, but in the second two communiques, in the Chinese and also in the Chinese version, in the second two communiques, the Chinese translation was something more like "recognize." I thought that was really fascinating, and I'd be interested to know how was that allowed? How did China sort of get away with that? It seems like they're in their translation, they're putting in the word they'd like to see there, or something like that.
That is correct. In all three communiques, in all three English versions, that United States government's stand was really clear. We only acknowledge what Chinese government believe, but we didn't say we agree. However, in the Chinese version of the three communiques, only the first communique signed in 1972, honor the English original meaning of the word "acknowledge." But however, in the second and the third communique, they translate "acknowledge" into Chinese using interpretation, meaning "recognize." So I think that at the time of these three communiques was signed by United States as well as China, both sides recognize there is a difference between the standpoint of two nations. But however, they decide to move forward to formalize the diplomatic relationship between the two nations, while at the same time.
Nansu, we're running out of time here, but I want to thank you for this incredibly precise explanation of One China policy, and please come back and visit us again because it's so good to have you back. This is China Watch Radio. The crew is ready to kick off the second hour of Wild Talk. Do stay tuned.
This is KSCO Santa Cruz.
Day is expected to be 86 degrees, while the lowest high temperatures in the area are expected to be in Watsonville and Monterey, 64 degrees. Small craft advisory is in effect from now through this evening, and another small craft advisory is slated to be in effect from tomorrow morning through late tomorrow night. On the boaters' forecast for tonight, west winds 15 to 25 knots, gusts up to 30 knots, wind waves 4 to 5 feet, swells southwest up to 2 feet at 16 seconds. The time now, coming up on 7 minutes after 3 p.m., and that means it's time for the second hour of China Watch Radio.
China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitol Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
Ni hao ma, wo hama hao pangyo man. This is China Watch Radio, the second hour. This is your time to pick up your phone and join us. We have put a smorgasbord of news items and opinions on the table. Let's go through them really quickly. And so pick up something and put it in your phone and call us, 831-479 1080. Well, let's just start with a quick recap of what Nan Su said, which was really amazing. Nan Su said that China has declared the Taiwan Straits to be their water and you stay out. Now, how do we respond to that? What do we do? Do we stay out? Do we let the bully push us around? 831-479-1080. Let's see. I picked up a piece today about how BlackRock was having secret closed-door meetings with the White House through 2021, and how BlackRock's Tom Donilon has now been named by the Biden administration to oversee our relationship with China. And as we know, and as we have learned, BlackRock's Larry Fink is a big China hand and has been given the only right for a private-owned company to sell mutual funds in China. Wonder what he paid for that.
Yeah.
831-479-1080.
Well, right on the heels of that, though, with his meeting with the White House and then going to China, was something ferried over in terms of information or content between the countries.
Yeah. What
through
was
private channels.
Exactly. What was Tom Donilon telling China? What was Larry Fink telling China? Having that access straight into the heart of the White House, and then having that relationship with China. Do you think there was any funny business going on there? 831-479-1080. Okay. David Welch.
Yeah. So
goodbye, Sam. We're with you, buddy.
Oh, beautiful Sam Quinton. So we reported that the G7 had convened in Germany this last week, and that to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative, together, all 7 of these economies, including the United States, had pledged $600 billion in new global infrastructure projects for emerging economies. And of course, as a counterbalance to Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, the goal is to take a more positive approach, a win-win approach to influencing these countries instead of a elite capture approach that was we've reported in the past to more cynically control these nations.
And counterbalance to that, we have the brick story as presented by Jonty in the weeds up there in the mountains.
That's right, Michael. It's to me, it's probably the biggest news that's happened in geopolitics in quite some time, in my mind. If as the BRICS nations intend, they're able to successfully create an alternative to the dollar in international trade, that's going to rewrite an awful lot of rules. And some of the more significant rules that's going to rewrite have to do with the United States' ability to use the printing press in order to run a $1 trillion deficit, and it's also going to affect the United States' ability to station troops in some 800 bases in, I believe it's 130 different countries. That we're not going to be able to afford to do that so much because we're right now using dollars to pay for those overseas deployments, and
we're printing them.
And exactly. And the way that we're getting those dollars is just by cooking them out of fresh air. I want to mention something with regards to the G7 meeting. Here's a quote here from. You guys have a much rosier perspective on it than I do. Here's a quote from the director of foreign policy at the American Enterprise Institute, Corey Shake. This is his comment on the G7 meeting. We'd get so much more mileage if we even pretended the initiative was to encourage development rather than to counter China.
It's a great quote.
Yeah.
It's a great quote.
What do you guys think of that? I think I just want to push back a teeny bit on how the wonderful G7 is going to go out with complete altruistic intentions and benefit the all the countries in need of infrastructure with with
Yeah.
no intention
You know,
of
that's a-
benefiting
that's a
U.S.
good point,
corporations,
John T.
etc.
That's a very good point, John T., because I think the world is in very short supply of altruism these days.
Isn't that the truth?
I was reading just a history account in World War II, a book the other day, and these were from interviews of German soldiers from the Second World War, and there was always a discussion of who do we want to surrender to, the Russians or the Americans?
Yeah.
And they were going to be prisoners and in a jail in both cases, but we all know what their preference was, right?
Yeah, amen.
Geneva Convention's a big deal
Yes.
when you're about to be a prisoner.
Yeah.
Let's talk about prisoners. Look, we're talking about big boats, right? We're talking about the article that I spoke about earlier in the last hour. China has this great new aircraft carrier. They've spent a lot of money. They've built a lot of technology into this bad boy. And it looks as though it's quite possible that aircraft carriers may not be the best idea when it comes to a Navy. Instead, smaller, more agile, more firepower loaded ships, and the good old idea of hiding stuff in a merchant vessel might be a better idea.
Well, Billy, I think you and I last week were chatting about that briefly, how the United States is always
Just a minute. 831-479-1080. Pick up your phone. Jump in. This is the free-for-all section
That's right.
of China
Love to
Watch
hear from
Radio.
you. Exactly. Oh, we were talking about how the United States was always really good at fighting the last war.
Yeah, exactly.
And China now has got kind of a clean sheet of paper, right? They've got a greenfield approach now to creating their military in terms of adopting
They can do it
the
any way
battery
they want.
technology you just talked about for submarines, or the swarmings of drones, or there's a lot of outside of the box thinking when you've got a green sheet.
But wait a minute.
Yeah.
China's been fighting this war for the past 20 years using unrestricted warfare.
Yes.
They haven't been shooting at us. But what they have been doing is capturing our elite, stealing all of our technology, and
soft power.
Soft power, yeah.
Also, there's we talk about war, and war means different things to different people.
There you go.
For instance, if you're Apple computers, war is a different thing to you than what most people think about missiles and grenades and stuff like that. War to you is defeating Microsoft.
Well, it's business.
But it's war.
Yeah.
It is
It's all forms
war.
of competition, right? Even combat's a
Trust
form
me,
of
if
competition.
you're trying to build a car, look, if you're Tesla, you want everybody to buy your electric car, not General Motors' electric car.
When I wrote
That's
Metro
war.
Farm, I suggest that you have to compete.
Absolutely.
If whatever you grow, you have to compete. Now, if you're small and competing against big, who do you look to for your technology?
Well, you
Sun
talk to
Tzu and the art of war.
You talked to my dad on your radio program, Metro Farm, about how he succeeded as a small business farmer. And my dad figured out that if he grew a crop nobody else wanted to grow, but everybody else wanted, he would make a killing.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. And that's what happened. Guess what? He grew something called Jerusalem artichokes, which I had never even seen before he decided he was going to grow them.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. It is business is war.
That's right.
And sometimes when I'm giving a presentation on marketing for small farmers, I'll talk about, okay, folks, we're going to learn how to compete. And half the class will get up and walk out because they don't think they have to compete. So we're in a world where
we have to compete.
We have to compete.
Oh, yes.
And there's a lot of people who think we do not have to compete. But China has been competing with us for the last 2 decades, and they have been cleaning our clock.
Well, there's a toughness too that I think they have. I'll just real quick. I worked at Atari. One of my first jobs as a video game programmer, and so Jack Tramiel, of Commodore, bought the company, and he talked about how business is war. And people are like, and he's talking about how tough it is, and he only wants the resilient people. And somebody was kind of mocking him a little bit. He's in a meeting. He pulled up his sleeve, and there was his serial number from a concentration camp in Germany. He says, "This is war, and we're going to win."
Yeah.
The resolve
Oh,
that he had was just astonishing. How he transferred that into the company.
Wow. And people.
I have a $1 billion rule. A lot of times people will find it far-fetched that there would be some sort of assassination or funny business in the high levels of business and politics. And the way that I think about that is that it costs somewhere in the range of, give or take, depending on the situation, $150,000 to hire a hitman to kill somebody. Don't ask me how I know this.
You've been spending too much time on the dark web.
I sent you a Christmas card. Remember that?
Yeah. Or
And
that's
Billy,
how
you
you
didn't
got
send
that
me a
new
Christmas
house, huh?
card. No. I mean, I got to. But in all seriousness, if that's the price tag on a person's life, and a person is standing in the way of $1 billion in money transfer business, whatever it is, it's not hard to imagine that this sort of thing would go on. It doesn't surprise
Look
me.
at all
I'm
of-
not sitting around thinking that Epstein hung himself in a cell when the cameras happened to turn off.
Look at how many people
And the
that
guards
got
are on a break.
disappeared in Arkansas.
Yeah.
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 No,
So-
Right.
to get serious for a minute, this is what John T's talking about. It's pretty real.
Well, if you look at the situation with Hunter Biden, for instance, and his various business dealings in China and in Ukraine, you end up seeing money of that order of magnitude being on the line. It wouldn't surprise me to find out, the sorts of things that go on, and the degree of competitiveness when a person's life is literally on the line. Or when a person's reputation is on the line as well.
That's very interesting, John T., because do you think there is anything left to blackmail Hunter Biden for?
No, in his case, no. I mean, I can't imagine. But the thing that to blackmail him with would be to actually cover everything that he's done in the mainstream news, because I've got plenty of friends who rely on MSNBC and CNN. If I mention Hunter Biden's laptop, they roll their eyes and they say, "Well, that's some kind of conspiracy theory or something."
Yeah.
But what I find interesting, though, Johnny, is that, and I was kind of startled by this, putting these pieces together. You've got Hunter Biden leaves these 3 laptops behind at this repair place, which is pretty foolish, right?
See, that's the first thing I thought of. I went, man, this is the stupidest guy in the world.
But I think he's trying to say something. So it was released about a month ago that his daughter, who had issues with substance abuse, and she was in therapy for a number of reasons, kept a diary. And when she left the institution, she left the diary under the bed. And this was and then that part of that diary was her recalling how there may have been some funny business when she was a young girl between her and her dad.
In the shower.
Yeah.
Right.
But these 2 kids were almost yelling for help by leaving these things behind, which I thought was interesting.
It's the only thing that can really make sense when it gets right down to it, because why else would you do it?
Yeah.
You're crying out to the world and saying...
So if you're totally compromised like that and you're transparent about it, you're almost the perfect vehicle for someone like China to continue to work with you.
Sure, absolutely.
Which exactly
you're corruptible.
Yes.
Well, I have a funny question. What do you guys know about Xi Jinping's family?
Nothing.
It's opaque.
There you go.
That's a very good point.
So get this. He has a daughter.
Yeah.
And last I heard, she was living in the U.S. I couldn't... The
I bet she doesn't use her.
The source of that couldn't confirm it, but
I bet she doesn't use her given name.
So do we have 831-479-1080? This is the China Watch Radio Free for All.
All right, let's start out with Dick, who's calling us from Santa Cruz. Well, Dick was there, but now he's not. Let's try Flinks in Aptos.
Hey, I was reminded this morning in a text, or it was online, someone posted the Pledge of Allegiance And I know a lot of people think they've lost faith in the United States and stuff, but I remember as a kid, you go to school and you'd say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, meaning to the republic, no matter who's in office, no matter what's going on.
Right.
I pledge allegiance to this flag, and we're so divided now. We're like cut in half. Like, we could not fight. I don't think we could fight a major world war like we did during World War II.
I don't believe that for a minute.
Yeah.
I don't believe it for a second because there's too much division. So if a country like Russia or China wanted to come after us, we would be at a disadvantage.
Flanks,
I'm just saying we'd be weaker now than we would be if we were.
Flanks, I think you're wrong, and here's why. At the time Pearl Harbor was bombed, this country was divided, very much so on whether we should support the shiploads of Jews who were trying to get into New York.
You had celebrities like Charles Lindbergh leading this American isolation movement. Right.
It was horrible. Right. And the minute they bombed Pearl Harbor, we came together in a matter of minutes.
I disagree, though.
I'm
afraid I go with Blink here. I agree with you because I believe China has been at war with the United States for 20 years, and they have been using all kinds of divide and conquer technologies to separate men from women. Absolutely, Billy.
Well, and the other point I think you brought up in the past, too, is how deep are their tentacles into our government and into our people?
Our society.
Yeah.
You grew up. Look. I completely disagree with your point of view on this. Okay, so I'm going to fight.
Good.
I'm going to fight.
You guys
I'm going to fight for it.
I want to see you guys arm wrestle for it.
Okay. Here's the thing. You grew up in Montana.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you really believe if somebody attacked the United States of America that people that live in a state like Montana or Alaska or Northern California or Texas are going to put up with that?
Well, the Montana
for
ranch
a minute.
Boys, yes.
For 1 second.
The mascara-wearing boys in San Francisco, maybe no.
No. I'm really serious. Asking him a serious question.
Yeah.
No.
Wait, I called.
Go ahead, Blink. It's your phone. Go ahead.
Well, no, because I think the Pledge of Allegiance is important in more than one way. I think it gives people purpose, especially if you're a young kid growing up, and like maybe you wouldn't have the mass shootings if you gave the kids some kind of purpose. Like you give the kids a purpose, and you have direction. Like there's no purpose. Like I think that the Pledge of Allegiance, even though some people say, well, the Pledge of Allegiance is racist, it goes against but you got to have something that brings us all together, like a bond, like something that we all commit to. Like,
well, I have a question for you in that regard, and really, if we were just to be historical about it and say, well, we used to all do the Pledge of Allegiance, etc. Well, this sort of cynicism is set in, where folks don't necessarily feel good about the actions of our government, and the reasons for that are myriad. We had a war in Vietnam that was took an extremely high toll on the civilians, bombing.
So you're willing you're willing just to have everything.
We invaded Iraq. We destroyed Iraq. We wrecked.
We should commit suicide.
Yugoslavia.
We didn't.
Well, the United States.
Iraq
people are cynical. People are cynical about the United States because we have done a lot of things which are kind of dubious morally.
No. We're so much less dubious than the other countries. That's such a ridiculous thing to say. Look at it this way.
Flanks, I tend to disagree with you.
One at a time.
Why are you blaming the United States? You realize now, what if Saddam Hussein, you let all those people live, he'd still be gassing people in the streets and killing his citizens, and you let these people live? Let Hitler live? We shouldn't have attacked Hitler? Come on.
So let's go back.
I mean, if you're going to make that argument, that is so ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm explaining. I'm not necessarily making that argument. I'm explaining it from a historical perspective. Why has this happened? I think we need to look at things like that. That's certainly in the mind of a lot of folks.
Okay. Let me throw something in now with respect. Maybe I can end this before we go to the break with a little up note. Blink. As a part of the Lions Club, every year we take American flags to first graders. And I stand in front of the class and I'm saying, I'm going to give every one of you a flag if you can say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. So we start off with I pledge. Now I say, what is a pledge? I pledge allegiance. What is allegiance? And by the time we repeat that all the way through the Pledge of Allegiance, I have 3 classes of first graders. And I give them each a flag, and we stand there with those American flags, and we repeat the Pledge of Allegiance together. And they do it with such enthusiasm that the entire school can hear what they're saying.
Beautiful.
And
that'd be cool.
That is what we used to do, and that is what we're still doing today.
And I'd like to just reinforce that. Let's look at the preamble to the Constitution real quick. In order to be a more perfect union, nobody's claiming we are perfect, but I think this country has the institutions and the right governance model where, yes, we make mistakes, yes, we do some terrible things, but we have a self-correction model built in with the involvement of the electorate.
There you go. Now,
you have to have at some point, maybe my point is, at some point you have to have a line that you all believe in. Otherwise, if you take it in a small context, take a basketball team. Let's say there's 2 guys that are kind of just like, I hate this coach, he's a dumbass. Those 2 guys are going to ruin the construct because it gets in the way, and then you have to downplay, you have to adjust for that.
You've just described the Warriors. When they got rid of Durant and sent him to another team, guess what happened?
Yeah, they were good. They were winning championships without him, though, so that doesn't make sense.
That's my point.
So there are those out there who do not want us to be worshiping the same country together. And we have to come to grips with that.
The Pledge of Allegiance, I don't think the Pledge of Allegiance is a worship. It's actually you're giving other person freedom.
You're promising. It's a pledge.
At least the Golden State Warriors are...
Everybody's going to be equal. Why do they have a problem with that? I think that the Democrats want equality, and the Pledge of Allegiance talks about equality at the very end of it. It says, and justice for all. I mean, you either believe that or you don't.
But at least the Golden State Warriors are so woke they can still play in China.
This has been a great call. Yeah. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your call. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the phone number, 831-479-1080. We have a half hour left of red hot news talk, China talk. Give us a ring.
What's for dinner? Burgers?
After last week, no thanks.
Avoiding foods due to fear of diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools? It may not be just stomach issues. It could be EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency. EPI can cause uncomfortable symptoms because it's a condition where the pancreas doesn't release enough digestive enzymes to break down food. But EPI can be managed. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor about your symptoms. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
Your sewer problem is no problem when you call EcoFlow Plumbing.
Hi, I'm Melissa. EcoFlow Plumbing serves homes and businesses throughout the Monterey Bay area. When you call EcoFlow Plumbing, we will fix that sewer problem in the shortest amount of time for the least amount of money. That means your sewer problem really is not a problem when you call EcoFlow Plumbing. Mention KSCO and get a $300 discount.
Call 831-818-6331 or ecoflowplumbing.com.
We're headed for the warmest weather of the year. I'm Charles Friedman. Before you turn on that air conditioner up to max, give a thought to the safety of all the electrical circuits that keep you cool. Best way to check on the safety of your electrical circuits is with the help of Chris Jensen and the staff at JM Electric. Chris, what should we be watching out for?
Thanks, Charles. It is really important to be mindful of the electrical circuits that power air conditioners. Any electrical leak from these circuits is a real fire danger. You may not be able to see the electricity leaking from the circuits behind your walls, but JM Electric's state-of-the-art testing equipment can find them. And JM Electric is happy to help folks out with a free home assessment to see if the current safe testing service is right for your home. Give us a call at 422-7819.
Go straight to jmelectric.com and take the home electric safety test. After you answer 12 yes or no questions, you'll have a good idea about how safe to feel. If you don't feel safe, call JM Electric and ask for a free current safe home assessment. That's JM Electric at 422-7819. You'll sleep well at night.
If you think things couldn't get any worse, think again. We're all now in completely uncharted territory, all of us, from the entire COVID-19 scenario to covert climate engineering operations in our skies to unfolding ecological collapse around the world. Converging catastrophes are closing in from countless directions. What cards will the controllers play next? Tune into the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m.
and replayed again 6 p.m. Saturday
on KSCO 1080 a.m. This is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.
Are you interested in a radio show with tips and tools to help you unravel the mysteries of your personal finances? Would getting a firm understanding of the basic laws of money management help you out? Then listen to Money Moves on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Host Pamela Fugit-Hetrick and her guests provide information so that you can successfully manage your own money. Tune in to Money Moves Thursdays at 7 p.m. on KSCO AM 1080 Santa Cruz.
Welcome back. This is the last half hour of China Watch Radio, and it's your half hour. Pick up your phone, join us, 831-479-1080. It is a slugfest this afternoon.
But by the way, I just want to point out to Jonty, who's listening from the trees today, that during the break, I defended you vigorously and your point of view because, we have some people on this panel who don't
Billy,
tend to look at the entire picture.
Okay, David, your turn to rebut.
Yeah, I mean, we've absolutely made some mistakes in this country around the world over our arc of history. But I think overall, when you compare us and how we're currently the largest economy, largest military, largest kind of everything right now.
We're the biggest bully.
Well, no, but we're also the biggest benefactor to people as well. I mean, this country's done more good around the world. I mean, you compare when the British were running the world, when the Romans were running the world, when Japan ran all of Asia, through the various arcs of time. I think we've been actually a very benevolent force in this world.
Okay,
yes, we're human.
let's move to
my intention though isn't to determine or explain that the U.S. is or isn't moral good in the world. It's to elaborate on the idea that cynicism has grown, and to sort of point out that some of the reasons why cynicism has grown is that, as you say, we have a self-correcting facility.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice if we used it.
Well said. Yeah. All right, let's take some phone calls. We've got Dick, who managed to call back. As we punched his phone line, it went dead, and then we got a dial tone. Let's see if we can make Dick's phone line work here. Dick, you're on China Watch Radio.
Yeah, thanks. You got me?
Yeah, you're there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to. Wow, that was like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride with Flinks. I don't know what. I don't know where you guys were going with all that, but back to Nan Su. Okay, if you can remember, it was first hour.
Yeah.
He was talking. Okay, I'm trying to understand Nan Su, what he said. And I have some ideas about it, but is he saying that that the U.S. is signaling a very clear policy and communication that telling China we will intervene for if Taiwan is invaded?
Here's what he said. He said that because of three different previous diplomatic agreements with China,
I can't get a yes or no.
Yes, he's saying yes. He's saying if China.
He's saying yes. Okay.
He's saying yes. If China, if mainland China attacks Taiwan, the United States will honor its agreement.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
There's a nuance there. That's not what he said.
I'm very confused, though.
Yeah. What he said was.
I don't know. I don't know how he came to that analysis.
We'll tell you. Hang on.
I have my own analysis.
Go ahead.
Can I say?
Go ahead.
It's quite simple. The White House and Biden and the defense secretary, they won't even talk about they won't even say or talk about the word nuke, nuclear. They won't talk about it. And the latest is that I think last time I mentioned it, that a lot of Asian countries now, they want nukes. They know what had happened to, Ukraine gave up their nukes. Look what's happening to them.
Look what happened to Gaddafi.
So we won't even, Gaddafi, Libya, we won't even say the word nuke. I mean, this is a clear signal to both Russia and China that the U.S. is so scared. It's definitely not going to stop either China or Russia from expanding or any more aggression. That's what I hear. What do you think, Mike?
Okay. Well, first of all, with respect to what Nan Su said, was that we have an agreement with China, If China invades Taiwan, then we no longer have an agreement with China.
We would no longer have diplomatic relations.
That's right. That would be the end of our agreement with China. And then all bets are off.
I thought one of you guys said we already had an agreement.
That's what I said.
Taiwan was.
We have an agreement with mainland China, not Taiwan.
Yes, we have.
Yes. Time out. Hold on.
About Taiwan.
The United States has an agreement with Taiwan, wherein we've said something along the lines, I think it was in the 80s or something, we redid it a couple times, which says something along the lines of, not the U.S. Army will come to defend Taiwan, but what it says is that we will, something vague, like we will provide for whatever means are necessary to defend Taiwan. So that's
it's very muddy. It's very muddy.
Well, it was very muddy. Now I think it's been clarified by the current president.
But you know, the agreement, Dick, that we made with China, the diplomatic agreement, was
the one China.
Yeah, was very graceful. And it was designed to facilitate peace. It said in essence to China and to Taiwan, here's the deal. The only way that we're going to be able to support either one of you is that if you learn to get along with each other.
If you get along, you don't invade each other.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Now,
I mean, it's still very unclear what our White House policy is. That's what I'm saying. That
really
they're signaling. Yeah,
really,
it's
Dick?
very unclear.
Really? The
what
president, they asked him a direct question. Wait a minute. I'm going to turn you off for a second so I can make my point. The president was very, very clear.
Yeah, right.
He was.
Yeah, and that's why the White House denied it. They turned around and forget. I'm not going to try to argue what Joe Biden, what's going on in his mind. One other thing. Well, actually, a couple, if I can get it in. Did you guys hear that some high official? I don't know. I think it was NATO or maybe one of you heard him making a statement saying that China will take Taiwan without even an invasion. Did anybody hear that in the last few days?
I have not heard that, but I have heard.
Okay.
Where did you hear
people say that? I have heard people say that China could take Taiwan simply by winning the vote.
Oh yeah.
Oh
we
yeah.
said that on this program.
I don't think that was his approach to it, though. I think it was, just shutting him down and boycotting and just closing them off. But hey, Mike, what you were saying, I thought needs a whole show about your class at Metro and how the students, when they found out that you had to compete, they just left. and then the other day Elon Musk was saying he would trade like one good China worker for like 3 millennials. So there's something going on there. There's something going on. I think you're onto something there, Mike, and keep fighting, Chauncey. I think in the 20th century we have screwed up so many times, and we have such a bad rap on the world scene now, especially with the Democrats in control. We are up the paddle without a creek. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Dick. Thank you very much. My goodness, 831-479-1980. We got pretty heated today.
Okay, let's talk to Lowell, and let's see. Lowell's calling from Soquel.
Hey, Lowell, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Oh, I recognize that voice.
I wanted to mention a couple of things that you've mentioned. You mentioned the symbolism of the flag and the things with the children and the pledge and what have you. I just happened to be a first grader about the start of the Second World War. I was in Pismo Beach. I lived in Shell Beach. And at that point, they thought that the pledge was wonderful, and we still do. And you recall, you put your hand over your heart.
Mm-hmm.
I pledge allegiance. Well, at that point, at that time, then you took your hand off your heart and you turned it out upside down, straight ahead, to the flag of the United States of America. And at that point, they decided that was too much like the Heil Hitler thing with the hand raised upside down?
Yes.
So we quit taking the hand off the heart and putting it out and presenting the flag and held it there all the time. So the symbolism changed just a bit there.
Right.
But it shows how we did want to make things right and not seem like somebody who was not.
So Lowell, with your experience with the arc of history that you've experienced in your life, I mean, how do you view the United States?
Very divided at this point,
yeah,
and too many people are trying to divide it. Maybe not so many people are trying, but some people are successful in getting us divided. When everybody wakes up a little bit, I think we'll come together.
Yeah.
Well, that's promising. We'll take that. Thank you so much, Lowell.
Thank you, Lowell. It was great.
That was a great story, too, by the way.
That is
good
true.
illustration,
That's what
too, of history.
While I was in grammar school in the first grade.
Outstanding.
So,
take care, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lowell. Appreciate that.
Lowell, by the way, has been listening to this radio station, I think, since it went on the air.
Yeah, since he was a first grader in Pismo Beach.
Let's take another call, this time from Colonel Terry. You're on China Watch Radio.
Well, you guys have bounced around from topic to topic.
Well, it's a smorgasbord show, Colonel Terry. You can take what you want and eat of it, as much of it as you can.
Well, on the function regarding Red Communist China, and you really should consistently refer to it as mainland communist Red China over and over again, and distinguish that Taiwan is a democratic, functioning democracy overall, and it is aligned with American principles and values and our national interests.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if the CCP just fell apart and Taiwan could take over the People's Republic of China?
Well, yes, that would be nice, and that I think that mainland China could fall apart in 3 segments. And perhaps we should encourage that. And we should deluge communist China with information about how much happier the people in Taiwan are as a democracy aligned with American values and Western values somewhat.
So, Colonel Terry, with your experience, when you look at a government like China, right, which is an autocratic government.
You mean Communist Red China.
Communist Red China.
CCP.
Yeah, I used to like, CCP. I used to like it when they referred to them as Red China. But don't they eventually collapse under their own weight?
Well, the Soviet Union did, as an example. The Roman Republic did.
Yeah.
Yes, but under their own weight. They do that because the people want to change, or a segment of people want to change. Why don't we encourage that? You're going to wait a long time for the autocracy to evaporate or collapse. The example of what they did to Hong Kong, that should be broadcast all over mainland China. Would you like to live like Hong Kong used to, and Taiwan does? We should undermine the authoritarianism of Red China and of Putin's Russia.
I love what you're saying,
yeah, I do
but how do you talk to Chinese people when they control all of the...
I have an idea.
Balloons?
No. You ever heard of Radio Free Europe?
Right.
You ever hear of the Voice of America?
Yeah.
That pounds Cuba every day with Radio Marti?
Well,
wait a minute now. Taiwan is just off the coast from mainland China. Why not just pound them with radio? Hey, we got a 10,000-watt transmitter. I'm sure I've got a target on my back now from doing this program.
There is, at least there used to be a radio station, where was it? Somewhere just south of Thailand, broadcasting into China. There was a Radio Free America radio there. I could look it up.
So I reported a couple of weeks ago that when I was in China regularly, that I had a VPN connection, so I could tunnel back out of there infrastructure and back
and a
to
VPN connection,
virtual private network.
Virtual private.
So it's an
network.
encrypted connection that just tunnels through.
Now, how were
bypasses.
you able to have a VPN in Beijing?
So I brought my own laptop with me. So I had a certificate, a security certificate on it that would enable. I'm trying to just use layman's language.
Sure.
It would enable this secure connection back to the United States, and it was a high bit encryption. So it's nothing the Chinese government could break.
Undo.
Exactly. And I was showing some people who live there things like Tank Man in Tiananmen Square, and they were just flabbergasted, to see
That
some of this
something like
stuff.
this actually happened here.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, wouldn't it be interesting if we took a bunch of VPN connections and were able to disperse them out among Chinese citizens so that they could actually, and then when you load them, they could tunnel right back to Western news sources.
David made an interesting question to Colonel Terry, and that is the totalitarian regime is so totalitarian. It controls everybody's breathing now. How do you talk to people, Terry, when the government is so much in charge and so much in control?
Well, one of the mechanisms, you embarrass them with the facts and the evidence and justice.
Yeah, but how do you get them to the people? How do you get that to people?
The multi VPN connection. In fact, I was having some computer security problems that involved China. I won't go into. And I went to a fantastic guy locally here in Santa Cruz, who was at Hewlett Packard for a career, and he's now helping people on their computers for modest amounts. And he put me into a VPN system where I just connect to that, and I'm never troubled by anybody from Russia or China again.
Yep.
Or domestically.
So this is something that everybody can do here.
It is. Yeah.
But we could, again, let's export that to China. Let's have an offensive for truth and justice, democracy.
And how do you export it to China when they control all of the...
Yeah, but they don't control radio. Why not just bombard them with radio?
And they don't control all of the television broadcasts that are potentially open either.
Yes, they do.
Not if it's shot in from Taiwan. They don't control that.
It only would reach so far, and then the signals can be blocked. But if you could salt and pepper, VPN nodes, because it's just a little piece of software, a little USB stick.
Oh.
And the same should be done by the West regarding Putin's Russia.
Yeah.
We're so behind. I briefed Biden 25 years ago on higher than top secret stuff.
Yeah, I've liked your stories on some of those. Those have been pretty interesting.
He's not an ignoramus, but he doesn't think strategically. Okay, comfortably. And I mentioned, he demonstrated to me that getting elected to the U.S. Senate from little tiny Delaware with 700,000 or whatever there are people is like no more difficult than running for the school board in a Midwestern city. You're knocking on enough doorbells. Yeah. Now, however, I can't defend Trump for an instant. However, Biden, again, he's got a strategic, if you will, void thinking. Regarding Taiwan, we make it crystal clear, and we do it with this in parallel public relations, information campaign, respecting truth and justice and the facts, and we will defend Taiwan and its independence because it deserves it and it merits it and so forth. And Taiwan, we say, is the example the rest of China's population, a billion people, should want to emulate and follow and live as well as the Taiwanese do. And they can do that if they get rid of the Red Communist Chinese Party.
CCP.
So, Colonel Terry, if the CCP has declared the Taiwan Strait as their sovereign territory, do you think the U.S. Navy ought to run right-of-way or right-of-passage missions?
Of course. And I mentioned before, 1958, we streaked jets when the Red Chinese were threatening to take Quemoy and Matsu and those little islands that belong to Taiwan. And we ran faster than they could catch jet fighters in front of their radars, and they backed down. We can make it clear with the U.S. fleet. We can make it clear that they will suffer the same sanctions Putin's suffering.
I find it.
Go ahead.
No, I think I agree with what you just said, Colonel Terry. I find it really difficult if somebody wants to argue the point that the Chinese would sink any U.S. Navy ship that happened to have been going through the strait. I think they would be horrified of what the consequences would be in terms of what the world opinion would turn.
It would not do it.
They won't do it.
You know what? I think that the issue here, the big issue is, well, of course, we're talking about the Taiwan Strait, but I think the big issue here is freedom of the seas.
That's right.
And David, you once made mention that the biggest benefit of the U.S. having a big Navy is that we have freedom of the seas.
These rite of passage exercises.
Yes, exactly.
And our U.S. Navy defends the freedom of the seas for a lot more than just the United States.
Exactly.
That's right.
We defend it for a vast majority of the world, but the United States also retains the desire and practice of sanctioning certain countries.
Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
In parallel with the information campaign that pummels into China and all over Asia the threat the Red Chinese are to human decency, to democracy, to human rights, freedom of passage, and even the suppression they inflict on their own people. It's unjust and wrong. That's what we should preach and publish, and also indicate we're prepared to defend. And
you know, it's even beyond that, Terry. It's scary when you look at what is happening to people, to human beings in China. Everybody in China is in jail. It doesn't matter if they're good people or bad people. Mm-hmm. Everybody in China is now in jail.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign, yes. If you're in China,
we know
you're in jail.
We have personal knowledge of foreigners who are in jail in China. And when I say that, I mean they're living in China, so they're in jail. They can't leave.
Yep. And they can't. And it depends on what their cell phone says. They may not be able to eat food.
Exactly. They ring fence them to a geo area with the cell phone, right?
Yep. Yeah. Jeez. So thank you for that call, Colonel Terry.
Thank you, Terry. We appreciate your input.
As Winston Churchill said, you don't negotiate with a dictator nor a tiger when it has your head in its mouth.
I remember that. That's a good one.
Good point. Right. So we have varying points of view.
Should we do a show on freedom of the seas?
Well, I think that'd be a really nice idea.
The thing about it is freedom of the seas is so important.
So we're looking at China. We're looking at all of these merchant vessels, their fishing fleets, their aircraft carriers. So they are going to go into a period of feeling their oats. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be very dangerous out there on the high seas.
But that's where they make their mistakes, right? I mean,
when they
come up and
yeah.
Well, it's funny.
Pride before the fall.
There you go.
All navies, going back through time, all navies have at one point or another made mistakes.
That's right.
The Japanese Navy made a big mistake when they parked a bunch of their ships in the Truk Lagoon. It was a big mistake.
Yeah.
We made kind of a mistake when we parked a whole bunch of our ships at Pearl Harbor at once.
Yeah.
Kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
You go back to the Peloponnesians and way back, and there were some big mistakes made,
there's a great battle that took place when Japan tried to invade Korea. And this is way back in the 1500s or something like that. Mm-hmm. And there were like 3,000 ships that they sent to invade Korea. Mm. And there was a Korean admiral who used these turtle boats, what they were called. They were iron shielded, and they had these harpoons, I guess. And they had a turtle head, and they could throw fire through them. And so they wiped out.
Just lit the other boats on fire.
They wiped out the Japanese, this huge Japanese invasion fleet. So that's what Taiwan needs.
Well, I have to say, there's a really cool kung fu movie about that battle that I watched with the kids.
Oh yeah, I bet there is.
Well, Billy was bringing up earlier some of the aspects about the greenfield open piece of paper design of the China Navy, and they're able to think about some of these things like the turtle boats, right? Yep. They're able to think outside the box. Sure. They're not hamstrung by a set of infrastructure,
not at all,
doctrine that they've been dragging along.
Yeah, and that. When you're talking about, aircraft carriers may not be the way. Well, they were the way in World War II. And they're a mighty piece of hardware, but they're very vulnerable.
Yeah.
Well, in order, the standard aircraft carrier, as you know, of being in the Navy, that a standard United States aircraft carrier has like 8 or 9 other vessels that protect it.
Yeah. But they're still vulnerable.
Absolutely.
I used to play a computer game. I'll be as quick as I can here. Back in the 80s, 90s, long time ago, called Harpoon, named after the.
I remember that.
The U.S. Missile, anti-ship missile, and it became apparent very quickly that the strategy in the game was just to fire all your missiles at enemy ships as quickly as you could. And so, if you look at the Type 055 and compare it to the Arleigh Burke class and one of the U.S. destroyers, you see that it's got about 30-40% more missiles on it, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, just real quick, I had a buddy of mine in school. He went off to join the Navy, and he's going to be a pilot, and he didn't qualify for fighters. So I said, well, you can qualify for helicopters. So what do you do? He says, well, in time of war, you go off the edge of the ship and you hover, and you let the downdraft of heat draw the missiles away from the carrier. And he thought, no, do you have another job I can do?
So I was wondering, are all computer games derivatives of Pong?
That's a good question.
That's probably really close to being true.
Yeah.
Huh. Come to think of it.
Hey, this has been China Watch Radio. We had a lot of fun. We got really heated, and we threw things at each other. Yeah. I've got egg all over myself. But
me too.
It was a lot of fun. And we're just blokes trying to figure out what the heck is going on with our world. We don't know. We have opinions. And we love to hear your opinion.
If we don't talk about it, nothing gets discussed.
Let's remind the audience real quick to go to ChinaWatchRadio.com and sign up for the newsletter.
There you go.
John, thank you for all your hard work and for joining us from the trees today. We appreciate it. And boy, it was good to have Nansu back.
Absolutely. Yeah. What a delight.
What a great story he had to tell. Thank you all for tuning in. And see you next week for more China Watch Radio.
This is KSCO Santa Cruz. Flight 1080's coming up.